that the hype. I don't know that the hype is justified on the Cowboys though. They're the favorites to win the division, and I think Washington's a better roster and a better team. And I love Dak Prescott. I think the Cowboys would be good, but I'm just not there.
I can't agree with you on that. I mean,
okay.
I think you could make the case the Eagles and Cowboys both have better rosters. Like I'm sorry. I think the front seven for Washington's fantastic. They are. Their defense in general is pretty salty. McLaurin's solid. I don't know really. I don't know. I mean, you can buy into Logan Thomas, but I think he's a good tight end. I don't know where you'd put him and rank him in the NFC. He was productive last year, but I kind of look at him and say, okay, we know we're getting defensively. I still not sure what to expect with Ryan Fitzpatrick, especially being the guy. I mean, could you not see him getting hurt? Could you not see him playing poorly?
Talk me to the Cowboys being good. Tell me why the Cowboys.
Tell me
why the Cowboys are good, Brady. That's my Charlie Day.
It's hard not to look at what they have a wide receiver and not think that they've got the best wide receiver group in the NFC. I think Dak, based on the pace he was on a ridiculous pace. They're going to be able to throw the football. Zach Martin out in this game hurts. We can talk about that, but I just think as long as they protect him, they can run the ball a little bit too. The offense is going to be there. It's just a matter of what Dan Quinn can do to improve this defense. I think they've made some good decisions. Micah Parsons is going to be a freak. He's versatile. He's athletic. He's going to improve that group. So I just think all the way around, I think Dan Quinn's a better fit for the personnel scheme of what they're going to do than what we saw last year with Mike Nolan, which didn't work out. So to me, it's not even it's not biased or anything. I believe this team is in a better position from a roster standpoint and talent to be able to win that division. And I would put Philly in there as if you're looking at their defense, if you're looking at their weapons too, and wide receiver, even their O-line, I might even put them ahead of them. I think Jalen Hurts could be a big question mark with what that group looks like, or Gardner Minshew if he gets a shot, right?
I know that we're previewing the week one opener, but I am curious. And are you doing this Eagles thing because you desperately want to be on the podcast every week and you're sucking up to Debo, or is this something you really believe that the Eagles? Because people are pretty down on the Eagles.
No. I think what we should do, honestly, we should have a conversation about all the teams that no one has any expectations for, like Houston, the New York Jets, the Eagles, who else? The Cincinnati Bengals. We should pick which one of those teams is going to exceed expectations, because there's going to be one of them. One of them is going to do that. I just think Hurts, and even I'll just say the Eagles in general, they have the potential to do so in part because of his athleticism, his ability to run, and I think their defense is good enough that they've got a shot to surprise some people because their roster is good too. And even if Hurts gets hurt, Minshew's experienced. He's in a much better spot than he was in Jacksonville. I know there's not obviously Jacksonville wasn't a believer. You ask Pete Prisco, he literally proverbially takes a dump on the guy every time. But statistically speaking, he was good on a bad football team. So you put him in this situation, I actually think he'd be okay. So that's one of those teams that I think could surprise people. And I'm not saying, have even a winning record. I'm just thinking if they're over under set at 5.5 right now, maybe they win 6 or 7 games, you take that over.
Okay. All right. So with Dallas in this game specifically, I have a hard time getting to. I think the Buccaneers are going to blow them out. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay,
I do too.
And Zach,
I think look, him not being there, it does a number of things, right? So everyone talks about matchups. You always look at matchups in fantasy and really wide receiver, defensive, all that crap. When you're game planning, you're looking at matchups on the offensive line, D-line too. So not having Zach Martin hurts in a huge way because what is he, a 6-time All-Pro, whatever he is?
He's probably the second most important player on Dallas's roster. Maybe you could say Tyron Smith over Zach Martin, but I would go Martin personally.
Sure. So and look, whatever you go doesn't matter. The point is, he's incredibly important to the interior of that pocket for a quarterback that's coming back from a lower leg injury that also has been dealing with a bad shoulder. So not only do you not want Dak running around, you don't want him getting hit and dropped in that shoulder too. And I know McGovern's playing and he's coming in to replace him, but there's a drop off in what you're going to get there. So it changes. If I'm Todd Bowles, it changes how I'm going to look at this, because if I'm Dallas, I'm going to try to slide my protection to McGovern to give him help. Every chance I get, I'm trying to give him a hand, give him some help. But how do you eliminate that? Well, you play more bare fronts, meaning you're going to put a guy over the center and over both guards to force a lot of those one-on-one matchups, or you at least put a guy over the center, guard, tackle on that side, and that really forces to have that one-on-one matchup. So
Do you
that puts them in
think
a
the
tough
Buccaneers
spot.
have a guy on the interior that could potentially wreak havoc and cause problems like that?
I don't know. I mean, Ndamukong Suh seems to be a pretty good kind of start
And
with.
Vita Vea, man, like those two
Vita
dudes.
Vea is massive.
Yeah.
So, but and all it takes too is like a linebacker mugging up, right? It doesn't even necessarily have to be a defensive lineman over. It
Unfortunately,
could be a linebacker,
the Buccaneers don't really have any fast like linebackers.
athletic linebackers.
You get blitz the faster. Yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
on Dak too, real quick. And I mean, I think it's a great point, but on Dak, because you dealt with foot injuries or lower leg injuries in your career. I'm not a professional football player, as we all know, but I'm wondering how much of the shoulder fatigue is maybe overcompensation mechanic wise from dealing with that lower body injury and maybe forcing, not want to step into it, forcing it, throwing more with your arm, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, not to get into a really dorky conversation, but it's not overcompensating. It's just his biomechanics has most likely changed. He was probably pushing to get back sooner than he should have. And because of that, like your body naturally reacts to pain where whether or not, when you ever feel like you're walking after you heard someone's like, oh, you got a limp. Like they notice you limping, right?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times that happens with your throwing motion without you being cognizant of it. But when you watch it on film or you have a coach watch you, you're not transferring your weight the same from one leg to the other. Like to this day with my left foot that I Liz Frank on, and I'm a right-handed quarterback. So when I go to push off that right leg to generate all that power, and now I'm going to violently torque my hips and then release the football, all that weight transfers my left foot. Well, if it hurts to put weight on there, I'm not going to transfer the way I'm supposed to. It's impacted my golf game. It impacted my throwing motion, like everything. Like even golf game today, like it's bad mechanics and transfer because of that. So that's something that no doubt in my mind played a factor in throughout camp. Him probably not, transferring quite as much and using his lower body and using that torque in his hips up to his arm, releasing it as much as he probably should have. So that plays a role in it, I think. I also think you tend to, in order to get confident in your body and how it's going to respond, you tend to do more and maybe a little bit too much. So he might have actually ended up throwing more this offseason than he would have done normally if he was healthy, because he wanted to ensure he feels confident and comfortable with how everything's reacting right now.
And for the record, that's not a dorky conversation. That's an important conversation. That's an important conversation. That it's a very reasonable explanation for why Dak Prescott might be having shoulder fatigue on a guy who's young, strong, in shape, but dealing with this lower body injury.
People tend to not realize like all your power comes from your feet. Like it literally comes from your feet. It goes up through your midsection and through your hand when you release the football. It's called ground force production. And a lot of it in his motion is going to be pushing off of that right foot and then transferring to the left. But you're going to have both feet on the ground as you're creating that torque from your legs through your hips, through your thoracic spine and all that, and then spinning to release the football. So if there's any breakdown in that kinetic chain, it's going to put torque somewhere. And so it usually ends up being your shoulder. For some guys, it's their elbow. But that's what I assume to be the issue that he's feeling in his shoulder.